Hey friends, welcome to the sermon for Sunday, June 27th, 2021. It may be easy to forget, but in Jesus' culture, women were second-class citizens. And we must remember the gospel accounts in the Bible were all written by men. They were good men, faithful men, but still not particularly enlightened men. And so any of the time they give the spotlight over to women, despite the fact that they rarely name them, we can be assured it was because Jesus was making it a very important point that involved women that the gospel writers could not ignore or gloss over. In this part of the Gospel of Mark that we read today, we have two stories, one sandwiched in between the other, but this is quite on purpose. One story is of a 12-year-old daughter on the brink of death, and in fact she dies before Jesus can get to her. The other is a story of an older woman who has suffered from an incurable disease that makes her unclean for 12 years. And when she is healed due to her own faith, Jesus claims her as daughter. These two stories of daughters, one 12 years old, one having suffered for 12 years, shows the value that Jesus put on women and girls despite his culture dismissing them. The little girl Jesus brings back to life, the first time he resurrects someone else, but not the last, and he swears his followers to silence regarding this resurrection. Oops, hit the camera. Indeed, it would have caused a riot, and this was only the beginning of Jesus' ministry. The healing of the older woman is no less stunning, but more easily ignorable by the crowd. And so there was no injunction that Jesus immediately put against discussing it. It's just not required. But here, with the older woman, the mind-boggling part isn't the resurrection, but the fact that in a crush of people, a crowd, walking through a crowd, Jesus could tell that one person, one single solitary person amongst dozens of people who had touched him and brushed by him, one person gently touched a fold of his robes. She did it with total faith and complete certainty that this alone would cure her. And it did. And Jesus could feel it. But she went this route because she likely thought he would not deign to cure her otherwise. Being a woman and untouchable, and really she shouldn't have been in a crowd being unclean. Oops. His followers in this story boggle when Jesus asks, who touched his robes? Who touched his clothes? But handily ignoring them, Jesus addresses the woman who approaches and kneels in front of him, expecting punishment. Expecting punishment, or just treating her like a woman of his culture would expect to be treated. Instead, he calls her daughter, confirms her healing, confirms that it was her own faith that did it, and tells her to go in peace. This sandwich set of stories shows that Jesus found women just as valuable as he found men. Girls were just as worthy of resurrection as boys. And women could be even more filled with faith than men, which is what we see when we compare this set of stories with the ones we heard last week, right before in the gospel, when Jesus asked his male followers why they didn't have enough faith not to fear. It is all too easy when men tell the stories about other men to forget that women were present. Women were followers. Women had faith. Women were seen and loved and chosen as leaders among men. But in this story today, we are reminded that Jesus saw and valued the women around him. They deserved healing. They deserved resurrection. And they had profound faith. Amen.